Okay, well, welcome to the first ever episode of the Better 24/7 Wellbeing Matters podcast with me, Gareth Boot,
and me, Sue Cowlishaw.
Do you know? This isn't actually the first one we've done, is it?
No,
we've done a few,
lots,
but I've had to change it because the podcasting platform we use wasn't put onto iTunes, so this will be in effect the first episode. And I think in the first episode we did last time, we kind of did a bit of an introduction in that.
Maybe we probably
Do you know
did.
What? I don't think we need to. I think people will learn about us as we go through the podcast because really what we do, and that'll come out. I think realistically what I wanted to talk about on this one is because the first podcast is generally the ones that people listen to first. They always check it out. It's always the most listened to, and I found that. I thought we'd just basically explain how Better 27 came about and what we're trying to achieve with it.
Well, we've actually been kind of mulling over the idea. We've had this Better 24/7 idea for quite a few years now, but it's just all now started to get a little bit of momentum.
Well, I think it's 4 years. It'll be 4 years because I've just renewed the URL better247.com, and it's like it's something that's been there hanging about, and I think the time probably never felt right really. I had a business I was running, you had stuff you were doing, and it didn't really come together. But this last few months, I think it has.
It's become more of a reality rather than just an idea. It's been brought on by lots of things that we've done and things we've discussed.
We should talk about that.
So we shall talk about it.
The whole idea of what we're trying to do is to look at your well-being, and well-being is one of those words I don't think people really know what well-being means. There's no definitive. You would think there's no definitive kind of idea of what it is.
It can be a little bit confusing. Some people think it's like, are you a personal trainer? And in Wakefield, we have a National Health Service, health and well-being. But it's kind of where people go when they're quite sick.
Well, you've got well-being, you've got wellness, you've got fitness, you've got health. I mean, clearly it's to do with you feeling good.
Yeah.
And where people say, how's your well-being? But the actual definition in the dictionary is it's the state of feeling comfortable, happy, or healthy.
Not both.
Well, I couldn't understand. That's the definition as according to Google, and it says happy or healthy.
Oh, we'll change that.
And I thought it should be happy and healthy.
Yes.
And the other thing about well-being, I didn't know this, and I've done a lot of checking and trying to look at other people that class themselves as well-being this or well-being that. Do you know how you spell well-being?
You spell it well with a hyphen,
Yeah,
with a slash,
with a slash being. And that's the correct way to spell it. And all the other ways are spelt incorrectly.
Well,
and yet
know.
So there you go. So ours is spelled correctly on his website, and we're going to always refer to that because that's the proper way to use it. Anyway, a bit of trivia there for you. So I think what I wanted to get into this first episode was looking at those three different areas. So we want to improve people's well-being so people feel more comfortable, they feel more happy and healthy. And that all sounds very nice. But it's kind of, I think there's an element that sounds very woolly. What does that mean in real terms?
Yeah, and this also comes, this has really come from our journey as well, where we started off a few years ago, more so you than me, and where we are now. There's been quite a long time in between, but we've been on this journey and we've made some changes that then has kind of highlighted the problems that people have.
Well, I just realised something as well is we've got water here because we might be talking for a while. We don't get dry throats and little frogs and all that. But I put ice in mine, so it's chinking. So if you hear any chinking, it is water with ice in it. There's no.
You're not supposed to drink water with ice in.
Why not?
Because it's bad for your dosha. It makes you.
Let's not get into doshas because it's going to confuse people on the get gone. Let's just I like my water cold, and that's how it's going to stay. Dosha or no dosha. Dosha is something Sue does to do with some element of some work she does around yoga and something else. We're not going to talk about that today. We're going to get down to basics. So I think you're right. For me, when we had this idea going back a few years, the Better 24/7 is to help people with their well-being. But I don't think we'd only been on a big enough journey yet.
We were doing things that couldn't be classed as well-being. So how on earth could we kind of talk about it with some authority or even show people when we had a lot of work to do ourselves?
Well, that was important to me. When we did anything, it had to be something we could evidence, not just we'd read it in a book or we'd learned it on a course. And it had to be something we actually said, we've done this, we've tried it, because the information we want to pass, whether it's through these podcasts, whether it's through the videos, and if anybody's interested in watching videos, we do have a YouTube channel, and these podcasts are going to go on there. So if you prefer to consume your podcasts through video, you'll find us on there. But as well as the podcast, we're going to start putting videos on of things we do, and kind of trying to share information that we know works. So in effect, I've often found this. I've worked with people in a coaching capacity where they've coached me, and they're advising me on things they've never done, and I just think, how can you have credibility doing that?
So do you want to just share how far you feel that you've come? If you look back, 6 years ago when we first met?
Well, I'll tell you what a good time for me to go back to. It would be to go back to about 2008.
And what did your life look like then?
Well, it was a very, very different. And just so we're clear, we've broken our kind of offering down, and what we're going to talk about is 3 specific areas. We're going to talk about movement, nutrition, and mindset. And we think that these 3 things together pretty much those 3 things will cover off anything that's going on in your life at all. Now, nutrition, you could call that exercise if you want. I don't want to use that word, and we don't want to use that word. I think it has a bad connotation.
You mean nutrition with food or diet?
No, I'm talking about movement. Movement, as in exercise.
Yeah.
Movement, exercise. Nutrition is food, and mindset is how we think.
Yeah.
So if you take care of how you exercise, how you eat, and how you think, your life will start to take on a different feel in a more positive way. And if some area of your life isn't right, it'll be some area of your movement, exercise, your mindset, or your nutrition that isn't right. So that's what I'm going to refer to it as. It's going to be movement, nutrition, mindset. So for me, I was thinking about this morning because I did a blog yesterday, because we're a bit shy on blogs on our new website.
Been writing blogs all
night.
night.
We need to be writing blogs.
Been up all night writing blogs.
Yeah, should we tell people that? It's
No.
a bit of a lie. The one thing that I started to recognise in myself was when 2008, my dad died, and he had an heart attack. Now, my dad was a big fella, and I remember, and it's actually, I was really sad when I tell people this, and it sounds like I made this up, and it isn't, that the last time I saw my dad alive was at my grandma's funeral. So we had like 2 deaths in quick succession. And I remember sat in the church at my grandma's funeral, Dewsbury Crematorium, and it's not the most uplifting of places, Dewsbury Crematorium, full stop.
I've been.
It's quite an old building. It's very kind of dank, and kind of, it's not the best crematorium. Crematoriums can be good. But I was sat the bench behind my mum, my dad, my auntie and my uncle. And for the first time in my life, and bear in mind at this point in 2008, I would have been 38. I'd just gone to 38 because my grandma died in November. I was 38 in October. And I looked at them all and I thought, they're really old. They all had white hair. And my dad was ginger, but he'd gone white. My uncle had got white hair, but short. And my mum and my auntie, all white hair. And I looked at them and I thought, they're getting old. And I just made that comment. I thought, they're getting old. And each one of them, I thought, they're not really in the best of shapes. My grandma, she was 89. She'd smoked most of her life. And in the end, it was kind of a bit of kind of dementia that slipped in. And she went to hospital for some care, and then she just didn't come out. So I don't know if it was actually some old age that killed her, or whether she had some of that MRSI thing. It was a very strange...
there is a little bit of nerves about going into hospital nowadays in case you catch MRSI.
She went in for a bit of respite anyway. That's not what I'm talking about.
Or is it MRSA?
Yeah, whatever. You know what it's a
Whatever it
bug
is.
you get anyway. And one thing that I did at that point, I thought, then a week later or a couple of weeks later, my dad died. And I remember thinking, it brings your own mortality home. I mean, I know you've lost your dad as well. And for the first time, you think to yourself, well, my dad was 65. I'm 38. If I last as long as my dad, that's not a lot of time left. And it brings more mortality. And from that point, 2008, throughout the next sort of few months, I started to look at my own health and wellness. Now, at that time, I was married and I had children. And I'm no longer married because I'm living with you.
But you still got children.
I've still got children. But I remember being conscious of this feeling that I wasn't as fit as I needed to be. I've always been relatively slim, people say thin, and tall, so I kind of got away with it. So in effect, I looked okay, but I just didn't have any energy at all. I was fed up. In 2008, 2009, I was not in a good place physically and not in a great place mentally. So that was the time I started to realise that maybe I should do something about this. So I did the first thing I ever did was in 2000, it was 2009, I know it was. I decided to start doing some walking.
Oh, is this the Three Peaks story?
It is a Three Peaks story.
It wasn't supposed to be Three Peaks, was it?
Well, it wasn't Three Peaks, it was one peak. It was meant to be one peak. I was meant to climb up a hill called Pennygent. Pennygent's a big lump of, you know it. We've done it ourselves many times since, but it's a big hill in North Yorkshire in a place called Orton in Ribblesdale, which is just outside Settle, which is near Skipton. North England, anyway. And I set off on this walk with a backpack on, some shoes that could be classed as walking boots. I think they were actually some shoes I'd had for working in a warehouse. And I started walking up this hill, and very quickly it became apparent that I was out of shape very badly. A quarter of a mile, half a mile, and I could hardly breathe. My legs were sore. Everybody's passing me. It's a Saturday, it's quite busy up there on a Saturday. And it took me so long to get to the top, embarrassingly so. I had to stop every 5 or 10 steps in some cases. I was sweating. And I got this backpack on that weighed way too much. And
What did you have in
I
it?
had a laptop in it. I don't know why I had a laptop in it. My idea was...
I thought you were kidding me.
No, I didn't. There's a laptop in it. Bear in mind, I brought a laptop, about 4 sandwiches, 2 litres of water. I had rain gear. Bear in mind, this was July. There was not a cloud in the sky and not likely for the next 48 hours.
Did you take sun cream?
No sun cream, Susan.
You
knew that were going to be coming because I don't do it. So in effect, I got to the top with all this gear for something that now, looking back at it, was literally you could have gone up there with a bottle of water in your hand and you didn't eat sandwiches. You were only going to be out 4 hours if it had gone to plan. But
Because you have to explain there's 3 peaks.
Yeah, so Pennygent's one of the 3 peaks in Yorkshire. There's Pennygent, there's a hill called Whernside and one called Ingleborough, and it's part of a track which is just shy of 25 miles long. Then you go up Pennygent, then you walk across to Whernside, go up Whernside, walk across to Ingleborough, and then end up back where you started in Horton and Ribblesdale. Now, I went to do one of the peaks. I didn't know the 3 peaks route. It's the first time I've been up there.
Did you not know there were 2 others?
I knew there were 2 others, but I didn't intend to do them. The part is I'd gone up to do one. But I'd no map. I didn't know about where I was going, so I thought I'll just follow the people. What I didn't realise until I'm coming down Pennygent, in fact, what I didn't realise for about another 3 hours later, is they were going to do all 3. I'd come to do one. So in effect, about 15, 20 minutes coming off the top, I should have turned left.
Did you not spot Horton in Ribblesdale?
But I didn't know anything. I
In the distance.
I had no kind of comprehension of where I was. I kept seeing buildings. I thought, well, I'm going left a lot because I kept going. I'm going to right, a lot. Right, I'm sure cars over to the left. It must come round eventually, this road. I knew I was in trouble, right, when I saw the viaduct at Ribbled. And Ribbled Viaduct is like a big viaduct, and that's at the bottom of Whernside. So at this point, I knew I was in a bit of bother for 2 reasons. One is I worked back in Horton in Ribblesdale, and I saw a sign. And you know, sometimes you do stuff in life, right, and you feel you think you're toughing it out, and it just takes one thing to break it, and you kind of just almost implode on yourself. My feet at this point, when I could see the reservoir, my feet hurt, right, in a big way. My backpack hurt on my back. I'm running out of water. My sandwiches, you know, at this point I didn't want to eat anything. And I got these potted meat sandwiches that had all gone audible in my backpack. It was ridiculously hot. My feet are sore, my back's sore. And I looked there and I thought, I ain't meant to be here. I need to be back in Horton Ribblesdale. How far away can it possibly be? As I get nearer to Horton, to the viaduct.
Or is there a road sign?
There's a sign. 6 miles. I could have cried.
Which now is nothing.
No, it isn't now. And the reason I tell this story, and we've gone on about it a bit there, but it was about, I made an attempt to try to improve my well-being based on thinking, I'll just go out and exercise. So I got my backpack on and walked. I've still got pictures from that walk. I had black toes by the time I got back. I was sunburnt. It was in one way an horrible experience, but in another way, what I learned on that walk was I loved the area. Pennygent never ceases to amaze me. And it was the first time I realised at that point I wasn't fit enough.
I was
So
just
that
going to
was-
say, did you feel disappointed with your fitness then?
I wasn't disappointed because I had nothing to compare it with.
Okay.
What I was aware it wasn't good. So based on the back of my father's death in 2008, I'm thinking, I don't want to die when I'm 65. 20 odd years sounds a very, because I could remember 27 years back really easily. At 38 or 11 or 12, I remember it. So I thought, it's not good enough. And I thought, I'll go out walking. So that was my first time walking. And that was the first time I realised I need to get physically better. It's the first time I realised I wasn't in shape. So that's me talking about when I first realised I needed to do something to improve my fitness. What about you, Susan?
Well, my story is a little bit different because I was brought up in a family where we were frog marched around every weekend. It was my mother, not so much my father, it was my mother's passion was walking. And it was in the days, it was in like, the mid-70s, where kids just did as they were told. So my mum was like, we moved to a new area, we'd moved to a better area, and there was a footpath group, the local footpath group, and she announced one Saturday that we were going on a walk. It happened to be about 20 miles. And we'd got not proper gear. I think we borrowed some cagoules. I can't even remember what we wore on our feet. And we set off and we drove. I remember the first walk was at Pateley Bridge, which is another beautiful village in North Yorkshire, in Nidderdale actually. And I remember sat in the back of the car with my sisters. Bear in mind, we never had seat belts in those days, and we were kind of like, we always used to fight in the back of the car. And I remember thinking, what are we doing? But you just daredn't say anything. You just didn't complain. I think we had like a few peck sandwiches and some club biscuits and always water. I never drank anything else. And we got dragged around this 20-mile walk. And I remember sat in the back of the car on the way back, being relieved, but it was kind of a nice relief. And I think we all fell asleep in the back of the car. And that was the start of it, really. But while I was that age, I never enjoyed it. I enjoyed coming home, but we were forced to do it. And then what happened was I got a little bit older, I got a Saturday job, I was old enough to be left, and I just never bothered until a few years later, and I picked it up again. And then I really found a love for it. So I consider myself quite fortunate that I was brought up in the times that we were brought up. You know, we didn't have any internet, we had no junk food, a bottle of lemonade would last you all week. And we were outside, and there was no question that we would not go walking. But then looking back, there were some of the best times we ever had as kids. We made a lot of friends, because you have to remember I was very shy, very introverted. I may have been 11 or 12. So when we all turned up at Pateley Bridge, there was some strangers, some strange people. And I remember thinking, I don't want to go, because my mother, who can strike up a conversation with, like, I don't know, a serial killer at a bus stop, she used to say, go make friends, go make friends.
Let's just be clear there, your mother has never striked up a conversation with a serial killer at a bus stop.
Well, I was trying to get across the fact my mother will speak to anybody.
Your mum has got away with words. She does get on with people.
And she used to say, go make friends, go make friends. And there were all these weird kids. And I just didn't like it. But looking back, like you do, it was probably the most important part of my childhood, was that, because it set me up. Even though I went a few years without walking, you know, I got married, I had a business, got divorced, blah, 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 you know, spent a lot of time drinking, and like you do.
So do you was there ever a time in your life that you felt that you thought, I'm not fit? Did you ever feel like your fitness has it been ever at any point when you thought, I'm not really that fit and I need to be fitter?
To be quite honest, no.
See, I think that's the difference with us two. You see, when
I've been a lot less fitter.
But never a
at
point where you
times.
thought this is not.
No,
good.
I've never, because even when I didn't walk, I used to suffer from anxiety quite a bit, and I found swimming swimming really fast, ploughing up and down the pool, got rid of the anxiety. And I was married to a man who was a triathlete, and he windsurfed. So I've always had some kind of, even if it was just going to a Zumba, not a Zumba class, there was no Zumba, spin class.
I bet you've done some Zumba soon, haven't you?
No, we used to do step.
I remember step.
Step classes.
I once went to, is a step class, what's the one that you do where you kind of go around and one time you're on the block and you might be lifting weights and you go to something else?
No, that's like circuit training.
That's circuit training.
Yeah,
but
we used to do circuit training.
I've seen that them step classes.
So I think, because I was married to Glenn at that time, and he was very athletic. So I wasn't as fit as him, and I didn't do as much as him, but I did do.
We'd do some.
I did do some. So I've been surrounded by it, but I've not always had tip-top health, especially during those years of socialising and growing older. And we had a lot of alcohol. We didn't really have anything else, but we did have a lot of alcohol.
Well, I think you probably had more of a challenge. Your challenge has been more about your weight. 'Cause I know you've gone up and down with your weight, but you've never been massive.
No, I've been.
But you've had your challenges.
I have actually
with weight.
been 2 stone heavier than I am now. But in the grand scheme of things, it was you wouldn't have classed me as having a weight problem.
No.
Even though I did have some kind of, little fat rolls dangling about.
But what I'm kind of getting to, this is funny how I'm there talking about, I got into kind of thinking about doing more physical exercise, making myself healthier because my dad's demise. We didn't have that growing up, you see. We didn't go for walks. And when I say that, what we used to do, and it's kind of almost an illusion, I think we told ourselves, we'd go to the coast. We spent a lot of time at the East Coast, and we'd go for a walk. So we'd walk on the seafront. Now, realistically, when I look at that now, that's about 1.5 miles. but I think a lot of people, if you said, do you walk? Oh, yeah, I walk. We walk at coast now and again. What I realised is that a lot of the reasons my father's demise came at the age he did with the condition he's got is because physical exercise was not a big part of his adult life. I do know when he was younger he played rugby, and I know he used to swim. But certainly I never knew my dad as a fella that was not anything but overweight. And I think there is a little bit of that kind of roasting the spectacles thing goes on with your dad, where you think, oh, if it was somebody else's you were looking at, and I didn't know him as my dad, I'd say we're huge. And my mother was not particularly active. My mother wasn't an active person. We weren't a family
What
like
did
you.
She say? She says to me, I don't really like being outside much.
My mum's a very different character. My mother was brought up in a very different way to what I was brought up in. She was in a family unit that was at best challenging. She had a lot of challenges in my mum. She come from a very poor background and had a very harsh upbringing. And she's never really been somebody. She'll say I used to be fit, but I've never known her do anything. I've never known her run. I've never known her swim. I've never known her walk. She used to walk to work and back, and we did live up on top of a big hill. So it's not that she didn't walk, but she never did anything that I would class as intentional exercise. She walked because she had to, but I'm talking about, do people know that it's between, well, we have to walk because you get from here to B. You walk, everybody walks, but intentionally means going out and saying, I'm going out and doing that.
It was quite unusual in the 70s for people. It was quite a new thing for groups of people to go out walking. But we never had a lot of money. There was very little money around. So it was a way of us staying together as a family and doing something together, whether we liked it or not, without spending too much. We didn't spend anything.
Well, we had a caravan, and we did a lot of caravanning all days, and we had a caravan you could pull about on the back of a car, and we once tried camping. And I think what I want to try to highlight with this the first few minutes of the podcast was that you've been active most of your life. I realised I need to do more exercise, and when we came together, we were at a completely different level of fitness.
Yes, and you were slightly dishonest with me, Gareth.
Well, I told you I walked, and I did walk. It was not a lie. I do walk. At that point, I did walk. But the difference was my idea of walking and your idea of walking were two very different ideas of walking. And for me, we seem to be talking a lot about walking because I think, as far as we're concerned, it's better 24/7.
It's just a great way to
Well,
keep
it is the
your
most
fitness.
natural and the most instinctive thing we do as human beings. I know not everybody can walk. There are people with issues and difficulties, but realistically, it is the most natural way for us to move about.
And also, you can start off from nowhere. You can start walking down the street.
Well, I think this is, again, what I'll hopefully come out in future podcasts, is talking about how we get into this idea of moving. So the idea is that movement really, instead of saying exercise, because I don't like the word exercise, and exercise you start thinking then about weightlifting, you start thinking about Zumba. A lot of my change in how I am now physically to where I was in 2008 has not come from going to a gym or lifting weights or doing Zumba or running even. It's come
I'd
from...
like to see you doing Zumba.
I would never do Zumba. I'll tell you why I don't like things like that. I love there's something about the outdoors I've always loved. Even when I didn't walk, I loved driving through the Dales. I used to love the Dales and I love the East Coast. It's just being outside in nature is really important to me. So this is where we are then. So from a movement perspective, you were quite fit when I met you. Mm-hmm. I was less so.
Yes.
So let's look at that point. So we'll talk in this podcast about where we were when we started this journey together. That's become Better 24/7. So let's look at nutrition next. So again, nutrition, you can call that food, but we'll refer to it as nutrition. So let you go on this one. So when we met, where were you with your nutrition at that point? And try to let me know, is there anything in your past where you recognised maybe your nutrition needed changing or something? So where were you at nutrition when we met in 2013?
I considered myself a healthy eater when I met you. Looking back now, I was nowhere near healthy. And just as you've been talking about the demise of your father, my father died at 60. And he was always very slim. He was always very active. But he absolutely ate huge amounts of sugar. He had such a sweet tooth. I think he was born after the war when it was rationed. And then, of course, as he got older and he could get his hands on it, he used to be really, he used to hide it everywhere and he wouldn't share it with anybody. So his diet wasn't great. And I understood that thing about sugar. And because I didn't have a sweet tooth and I didn't eat much sweet stuff, I considered myself to be a healthy eater. But looking back, it wasn't bad, but there was a lot of work I had to do.
Well, I remember when I first met you, and it was because we worked together. You coached me actually around some health and wellness stuff at the time. And I remember you used to turn up to your coaching sessions with me, and you'd always have a boiled egg and some nuts.
And some blueberries.
And blueberries. So it's surprising you say that, because I always thought you must have been a good eater, because you actually as well, you were very, very, you weren't big, you were slender. And I remember when you asked me to do a food diary.
I'll always remember it.
So it's funny, when you were there, you thought you were eating quite healthy.
Yes.
Now looking back, you weren't. As far as nutrition is concerned, when I met you in 2013, mine was atrocious.
So can you remember what you used to eat when you got home on an evening after your, takeaway most of the time?
I used to eat Kit Kats.
How many?
8. You've got to remember with me, and something that it'll come out in future podcasts, I'm sure, is that I have a very addictive personality. I mean, I don't drink because I have had issues with alcohol. So that's something, again, we'll talk about in future podcasts. But I have this personality that it's all or nothing. And I've had to manage that most of my life. So for me, when I'd stopped drinking, which I've stopped drinking twice, really, because I stopped drinking in 1998. So I mean, in 2013. I'd been sober for 12 years, and I had a bit of a fall off the wagon before I met you, 2011. Then 2012 were a good year, but when I met you in 2013, I wasn't drinking. And what I found is I was eating a large amount of sugar. So this is a guy that recognised he wasn't fit. So between 2008 and when I started wanting to get into shape and get into 2013 when I met you, I had tried other things around fitness. So I had tried the gym, I had tried running. Nothing really stuck.
Did you do anything with your food?
My food used to go in fits and starts. I tended to find something I liked and ate it a lot, but it tended to be food that was very, I wouldn't say it was healthy. And I didn't live in a relationship at that time that I thought, it wasn't like we didn't have access to nice food. We used to eat a lot of food. I used to cook a lot of nice meals. I always were pretty good in the kitchen. But as kids came along, and my kids were born in sort of 2002, 2004, I started to become aware that I was eating a lot more junky food. I worked late. I was running a business. They were kind of home from school. They were getting fed by the mum, and she wasn't the best cook. Was my ex-wife. She could cook things, but it was very basic. And the kids ate a lot of things like they'd have McDonald's a couple of times a week. And I thought this was okay, by the way. You know, back then I thought, well, it's a treat. And I used to hear that word a lot, having a treat. So we'd have a takeaway and it'd be a pizza as a treat. So when I first met you, my big problem was sugar. I used to eat Kit Kats, I drank Red Bull. Because the downside to not eating particularly well and not exercising is you're tired. Mm. So I used to drink Red Bull to bring myself around. So when 2018, when we met, I think we both knew my food was garbage. You know, you're eating far too much sweet stuff. I used to literally consume chocolate and crisps and Haribos. It was a lot of sugar, and I didn't. In fact, you've highlighted this to me this year, that you'd never seen me eat fruit in 5 years. And I hadn't. The reality, I didn't eat fruit. Fresh fruit and veg. Fresh veg maybe on a Sunday with a Sunday lunch. But my diet, my nutrition at that point was atrocious.
Yeah, it was only a few months ago I said, I have never, ever, ever seen you eat any fruit once. So you went out and bought a pineapple and you came home with it. You were really chuffed. And then 2 weeks later, when it were mouldy, I put it in bin.
Well, it's habits. My habit was this. I used to go home, I used to buy, and I've got to be honest, it came from, I used to go to Asda, and I live quite near an Asda. I'd go in and just buy packs of the offers, so it'd be like, and it's always the stuff on offers, never stuff that's that good for you.
You know, they don't have Perrier water on offer,
no,
do they?
So you go in and you get like 8 Kit Kats for £1, or you might go in and get a bag of Haribos for £1. They're all them pound deals. And I found myself really eating a lot of sugar. I have to say, I wasn't in the best place mentally when I met you. Emotionally, I had a business. I was very stressed. I wasn't happy in my home life. And, you know, I loved my kids, but I was clearly in a relationship that wasn't just working, and it hadn't been working for a while. So I had this stress going on. I used to come home, I feel very insular. So I would tend to spend a lot of time by myself on my laptop, eating rubbish sweets and just basically wasting time. So in 2013, that's where I was with nutrition. Not good. Okay. So so looking back, maybe you were in the best place either. You were better than me, but not where you are now.
No, that's quite a tricky question, that, because when you now mention the nuts and the blueberries, I probably would have had that for breakfast. I always kind of fell down a little bit on an evening because I love to cook. I find cooking therapeutic. I find it relaxing. I'm very artistic and very creative. So the thought of just sat down with something very simple was, it kind of, I used to make evening meals because my husband worked away. So sometimes he'd be away for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, up to a month. So when he was around, and he used to really enjoy his food, I used to make it an occasion. You know, you laugh at me. I'd have had candelabras, and I'd have had the table set, and there'd have been some Barry White in the background.
It sounds absolutely atrocious, quite frankly. If I come home and Barry White's on in here, I ain't eating it.
And not always Barry White, sometimes Nat King Cole, especially around Christmas time. We had a big open fire, and, you know, I'd cook some lamb or cook a nice piece of beef.
You're drifting into all the good stuff. What were you doing badly in 2013?
That was what I would eat on a night, I'd eat too much.
You'd eat too much, right?
It was delicious.
It. Let's talk about the other thing you do quite a lot of you used to do quite a lot of when you were cooking.
What?
You always drink when you cook. I always remember you drinking and cooking.
I like to have a drink when I'm cooking.
Right. So this is kind of what I was trying to eke out of you. So
but
you in 2013 when I met you and we started getting to know each other, I was quite amazed at what you did eat, because I think our first date, actually, I took you for a pizza, and you hammered that pizza with a couple of glasses of red wine.
I can eat, yes.
So I've noticed with you that you have this habit of, and I think people do this, and it's something, again, I think is really important that we kind of try to not get too much in this podcast, but talk about, is people have slight rose-tinted spectacle look on what they do. They're seeing that, I don't eat that badly. I don't drink that much. I exercise quite a bit. But when you actually look back at it, it's too much.
I couldn't work out why I exercised a lot and I ate healthily-ish, that I was kind of like best part of a stone overweight. And it was difficult for me to manage. And it wasn't until I actually got that under control, if you want to say that, and then I look back, and the issue was I ate far too much red meat. I ate far too much. If I sat down,
was there anything you ate that was, did you fall into crisp chocolate? Was any of that going on?
I'm a crisp fan.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm not sweet stuff, ice cream, cakes. Not bothered.
So 2013. You're eating more than you should do.
Yeah.
Chris is there, Booze is there.
Yeah.
I'm eating Kit Kats like they're going out of fashion.
Yeah, we sound a right
exercise.
pair.
No, but I want people to understand in this first episode where we were before we started this journey.
Yeah. It was...
So we talked about nutrition. Prior to that, we talked about movement. So the final bit of our kind of, if you like, the trio is mindset. So where were you with your mindset in 2013 when we met? What was going on in that kind of that part of your life? What would you say? Did you have a strong, resilient mindset, or did you have some issues there?
I was fairly resilient, but I was a worrier.
Okay.
And that worrying would take the form of anxiety. And I could get, when I say depressed, I don't want it to sound like I was sinking into the depths of depression, but I had times where I found it difficult to be positive about anything. I was surrounded by quite a lot of negativity, and I think it had kind of just wore me down. But that's the way it came through for me with anxiety, which is, for people who've suffered from it, is it's debilitating. It was for me anyway. Some days I found I couldn't focus, I couldn't function. I didn't lay in bed all day eating sweets, but I kind of went through the motions of what I was doing. I'd always spent a lot of time loving what I did. For people that don't know, I was a hairstylist. I had my own salon for a long time, which I always loved. That came to an end because it was time to move on. And then I spent a few years kind of being forced into doing certain things. I enjoyed some things, not others. I had no clarity, I had no focus, and it was... when I look back, it's difficult to explain, but I'm sure a lot of people understand. One day you've got a great idea and you're all revved up. The following day it looks silly and you're depressed again because I couldn't always see a way forward. I had no specific, I went to college, I did interior design, which I loved. I loved architecture. I did a very, very, very good coaching course, became an NLP master. I did all sorts of things, but I could not find anything that kind of fired me up. And that made me feel quite miserable. So I did struggle with roller coaster emotions. It was up and down. There was not much in between, really.
Okay.
And I fell out with people. I was, when I look back, I don't think I was a very nice person. I'd become quite defensive.
When I first met you, I clearly liked you. Otherwise I won't be sat here today. But you were very different to how you are now. You were a very prickly character. I thought you were a bit kind of... you were very snobbish.
Careful.
No, I mean, this was the reality. You were kind of full of yourself. And the lifestyle you had and things you talked about, like the way you explained your meal there, or I did this and open fires and all that. And I think, hang on, this is not the world that I inhabit. Although, and I always thought to myself, you were quite harsh at times. especially with people that maybe behave differently to you.
Well, I was also very harsh with myself as
I
well.
could see that. So I think when I look at it, when I was at that point in 2018, I was in quite a good place mentally in some ways in 2013. I'd had a bad year in 2011, come off the alcohol. I weren't happy. But 2012 was a really, really good year, and I kind of met you early part of 2000, and 2013. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. But I realised when I first met you, there was areas that I was ignoring. The fact that I wasn't happy in my business. Because I was earning a great deal of money, the business was doing very, very well, but I hated it. I was not happy in my marriage at all. And it was becoming increasingly more difficult. I had kids, like I say, I love my kids very much, but I couldn't come to terms with the fact that actually the rest of it was horrible. And it wasn't. It was at that point I started to realise that my mindset was the glass is half empty.
That's when I first met you, and we did some coaching around your food. I remember going home and thinking, he just needs to chill out. He's like, kind of quite miserable, really.
Got to remember, I had a business back then, and I have this thing about me. I can be quite serious, and when that seriousness hits me, I've got to have something done. I become laser-like focused on it. So my business was strange because I had some good people working for me. At times, there were a lot of things that went on there that I didn't agree with. I felt that the last 2 or 3 years of my business, so from 12 up to about 2016, 12 to 2016, I should have pushed it harder. I working with people that I don't think were competent enough in certain ways. I should have done more with them. And as the leader of a business, I should have known that. So I was quite harsh. I was quite miserable because I had all this to think about. The thing about running a business of the size I had, you're never away from it. Phone ringing every 2 minutes. Every holiday there'd be some idiot ringing me from a client. And I say that in a way because we worked in a quite a volatile industry, the betting industry. I can say it now looking back that actually the clients were a set of tits. And I take no pleasure looking back at that business. I enjoyed some of the people I worked with. They were great people. We should have pushed in the direction. And quite frankly, I was stressed up all the time. You're always on the edge of this and edge of that. So in 2013, I felt I was okay mentally. But that was not to last very much longer because when we got together in 2013, 2014 was a very, very bad year for me mentally. And I won't say I've suffered from depression because I think I've always been quite melancholic. It's not something I see as a problem. It's something I quite enjoy. I listen to music I listen to sometimes. So I have this kind of side to me, which is like you, very introverted. But my thinking's always, I quite enjoy melancholic stuff. So people say, you can be a bit miserable, you can be... My mother used to do it because she'd say, oh, you like your granddad, because my granddad was a bit miserable at times. Chimpy, well, a bit kind of funny like that. And in a way, it's just that I didn't like the people that were full of themselves. Because I was an introvert, I didn't like that. People, I never danced at parties, I never liked being centre of attention. I hated all that. So for me, I quite liked my own company. So I think when we started in 2013 living together, I would say mentally I was not in a bad place, and I just finished a course that you'd done, which is NLP. So for people that don't know, that's called Neuro-Linguistic Programming, and it allows you to understand how people behave, how they behave, and it's kind of it's almost like I would say the study of human behaviour, why we do what we do. I knew all about this, so I started to see some big problems with how I was thinking. I knew at that point there was some thinking that wasn't correct. So that kind of covers off the mindset. So we talked about where we were when we started with the movement, exercise, nutrition, the food, and now thinking and mindset. So that's 6 years ago.
It's when I look back, we've actually, or I'll speak for myself, made bigger and bigger strides as we've got further and further along. When I look back, the change was quite small and it took a long time. But then in this past year, the change and what we've done has been a huge difference.
Why I wanted to get this out in the first episode was I don't want anybody listening to our podcasts, consuming our information, or looking to do any kind of courses with us or come to our events. I don't want them to think we were like this, or we just there's something special about us. That we become them people that, oh, you've always been fit, you've always been healthy, you've always had a great strong mindset. The reality is we were not.
Certainly not.
And I think the issue we face now as a society, certainly in the UK, is so many people are struggling with things like not exercising enough, not enough movement. They don't know about nutrition. They certainly don't understand mindset. We've got more and more issues now with mental health, anxiety and stress in increasingly younger people as well. So what I wanted to kind of highlight now, and I know we're kind of 43 minutes in, it's taking a bit of time to explain that it's important because I think people need to understand we did not come into this in 2013 when we got together all singing and all dancing. We had a long way to go.
We've had a lot of steps forward and a lot of
There's
steps back.
been a lot of, let's be quite honest, the first sort of 12 months we had a lot of hostility from kind of people in and around our kind of social circle. We both had to leave people to live
we
together.
weren't the most popular.
Well, no, but
couple.
there's two sides to every story, and I've always been very mindful of the fact that I don't want to start to kind of weigh into ex-partners or ex-wives or whatever, because things come to an end sometimes naturally. But there was it was a very big transitional period when we got together, and I think the one thing I noticed from kind of the get-go was these were areas where movement, nutrition and mindset, these were things that were quite important from the get-go in our relationship. We did start walking pretty much as soon as I met you. It was one of the things you took me doing. You certainly introduced me to different food and better food. And we've always had this interest in personal development, so thinking and mindset. So it was something that's always been in our relationship, although at different levels. That's where we started. So now it's 6 years down the line in 2019. Why did we make the decision to start this Better 24/7 thing?
I've become aware because I have been labelled Pollyanna in my previous life. I kind of like jogged along thinking, why can't people do this? Why can't people do that? It isn't easy. There are some very simple ways to make changes, but without support and feeling that you're on your own, they're not always that easy to put into practice. We're lucky that we have each other. As I got fitter, I am now a yoga teacher, there's a lot of things I don't eat that I used to eat. People started to comment on how happy I seemed, how well I looked, and start to ask questions. So people started coming to me and they were kind of like seeking answers, but they were a little bit shy about asking things. So I think the idea of getting a group of people, a community, where people can just come in and they can share things and they can get information without having to go to a gym or employ a nutritionist or do this or do that. Just a safe place where people can get together and support each other in improving their lives, however that looks for them. Some people want to become plant-based. Some people want to eat fish.
Right, you need to roll back a bit here.
Roll back.
Explain what plant-based is.
No meat or dairy.
So you're talking about nutrition.
Yeah, well, this was one of the things. Everybody has their own take on what would be an improvement for them, and that's it. It's not about doing what we do. It's not about having some grandiose idea. It's about improving in small ways for you, for yourself.
The one thing I thought Better 27 would become, and it has come into that now, was this way of getting people to see that we can do it and show people how to do it. Because I was staggered, if I'm honest, as I started to get fitter and understand more about my nutrition. So I knew more about my movement as I started to do more walking, which has this year developed into a bit of running. And as I start to eat better, and I have become plant-based now, so I don't eat any red meat anymore. And again, that's a choice we've made based on 6 years worth of trial and error. So this is not something that's happened overnight.
We didn't wake up and go, oh, let's do this.
And what's important is that people understand who are listening to these podcasts or looking at what we do. We're not saying you have to start doing 3 peaks of Yorkshire. You have to start eating no meat. You have to start doing meditation and understanding Buddhism and texts and all this spiritual whatever that might go in mindset. You have to start the journey. And most people, I realised, didn't know how to start the journey. And Better 24/7 is to allow people to start the journey, then be supported on it. Because it's always kind of has amazed me how many people don't know really basic things. People. The prime example is when it gets to sort of maybe March or April time, and people then start to think about going on holiday in August and September. And they've got a problem with the weight. They want to get into the bikinis or the Speedos. So they think they're going to start something in March or April.
Have a beach body.
And have
but
a beach body.
They are led to believe.
Well, that's why that was important to me, that what Better 24/7 is no bullshit. If we're going to show you something and we've done it, and we will talk about something here, which is this has been a 6-year journey for us. So for me to get to a stage now where, as it currently stands, I'm almost 3 stone lighter than when I knew I was chubby when I first met you, but I didn't realise I was 3 stone wrong. And it's taken a long time. And most people aren't aware of how much time it takes, and nobody tells them that. And what I wanted to do is to use better and say, look, a lot of things are possible. You can improve your well-being, but it takes time. Now, if you're not willing to put the time in or accept that, and you want it fast, you're going to either do one of 2 things. You're going to hurt yourself through exercise, and you're not going to. You'll take on ridiculous diets, which will affect your health in a negative way, and it will increase your worry and your stress, because it'll cause you to feel fed up that you took something on and feel like a failure. So I'm sure a lot of people listening to this will be on that wonderful thing called Facebook. The amount of times that things come on my Facebook that are offering people quick solutions to what are very big problems is ridiculous. Get the 12-week, get ripped in 12 weeks. Now, if you are somebody that's in pretty good shape and you're used to going to a gym and you already understand about weight training and how to feed yourself when you weight train, in 12 weeks you can probably do a lot with your body. We know a chap that's going to take part in a bodybuilding competition, and he's taken a 12-week program on, but he was already in pretty good shape anyway. He's just getting better. But if you're somebody that's maybe 2 or 3 stone overweight, and you'd have never exercised, and you're eating takeaways and rubbish food, and then you want to be like that in 12 weeks, a 12-week get ripped, it's not going to happen. So you're going to spend money, which is a waste of money, in my opinion, on that. You're going to potentially injure yourself, and more than anything, you're going to end up not getting where you want to be, and you end up feeling fed up and depressed. And all of a sudden you think, I can't do this, and never try again. So for me, what Better 27 is showing people what we've done and giving them realistic information on how that journey is going to look, what to expect. And I think most people don't ever get told that. They don't understand. I was talking to somebody, I think it was probably back end of last year, we were discussing. So this was not somebody that was particularly young, by the way, and they didn't know the difference between carbohydrates and protein. So as far as nutrition is concerned, they didn't understand these 2 building blocks we need. There were also people that we've done it ourselves, where we've seen people that have taken on walking challenges, things like the Yorkshire 3 Peaks, we've talked about it earlier, 25 miles. And think that it's easy, it's only 25 miles. They have
how hard can it be?
They have no comprehension of how difficult some of these things can be. But equally, some people don't understand how simple these things can be if you break them down. And part of what and I think we've talked about this, not on this podcast, we talked about it prior to this. Our role now as Better 27 is to support you in that change. So whether that's through one of the courses we're going to start to produce, whether it's coming to one of our events, whether it's the information we're going to go away for free on Facebook and Instagram, showing you ways you can change those things in your life to improve your well-being so you are more comfortable, happy and healthy. but it's realistic. It's going to give you realistic timescales, and that's the one thing that I feel now. If I'm honest, I get quite annoyed about it. We get lied to a lot in the media. We get lied to a lot by people that are trying to sell us something. The food industry, if you want to call it an industry, lies to us. The exercise industry lies to us. The people that are trying to sell antidepressants and that lie to us. So you've always been marketed with something that's going to make your life easier, more comfortable, happy and healthy. And we all want that because that's good well-being. And there's nobody out there that wants to not be happy. Even people that say they don't want to be happy, they're happy not being happy. Everyone wants to be happy. And I think there's so many people that just don't know where to start. We want that to be that. So we want these podcasts and what we're doing to be that start for people, don't we?
We do. Excited.
Realistically now, we've been at this nearly an hour, and I think it's probably enough. So you'll get an idea of where we were through this episode. And I think rather than trying to do another hour on top of this now about where we are now, we just want the first one to say this is what we're about. We started off at places where both our movement, our nutrition, and our mindset needed some attention. Yours probably less so than mine. But we're not at that space now. I think now, if we just very quickly, maybe a few minutes each, where do you feel you are right now with your movement, your nutrition, and your mindset? So, if you had to sort of do that in a couple of minutes, very brief on each one, where do you believe you are now?
Well, my health and fitness has really kind of been supercharged in the past year, since I made quite a few decisions to change certain things. And at my age... Which is 57 next week. I actually this morning felt the healthiest that I've ever felt in my life. So that's where I am now, without going into loads.
Okay,
with everything.
What about you? Well, no, but you pick each one. So where are you at? Right? So that's where you are with your movement and your exercise. We'll keep referring to movement so people understand. Okay. Movement, you can class that as exercise. What about your nutrition right now?
My nutrition is virtually, nearly perfect. There's a few twists and tweaks, but in general, I feel energised. I've got clear skin. The amount of people I haven't seen for a while that see me say I'm looking well. Food has such an impact. What you eat has such an impact, and that has become so apparent to me in the last few months. And so my food, I feel free. I can walk past bottles of Prosecco. I can walk past bags of crisps and give them no thought whatsoever. And with that has come kind of a freedom that I'm not attached or trapped. And looking back from where I was, it's like you've spoken about, don't think you can do that overnight. This has been a long time. And it's kind of been a long time, but recently it's all come in a lot faster.
What about your mindset?
Through studying yoga and the 8 limbs, I've become a lot more compassionate. I've become a lot kinder. I've become a lot more altruistic, a lot more generous, a lot more aware. And it's given me it's given me a very content feeling. I said to you the other night, sometimes I sit and I get this wave of like just complete happiness. It sounds a bit pappy, really, but I feel quite alive. Is that a bit dramatic?
No, I think again, it's what it is.
I feel light. I feel healthy, happy, and I do have my days where I'm like, what the hell am I doing?
So you would say now you're comfortable, happy and healthy. So you've got good well-being.
Yes.
Perfect.
I feel very blessed.
Cool.
I feel very lucky.
Okay, I'll flick through them quickly. As far as movement's concerned, where I am now with my physical body and physical fitness is, to be honest, it's unrecognisable from what it was in 2013. I believe I am the fittest now I've ever been as an adult. I'm certainly the lightest I've ever been as an adult from a weight perspective. I'm the leanest I've ever been as an adult. And I've got a lot of good energy. And that comes through regular exercise. And I think, again, you said it, probably the last 6 months that's really ramped up. So I would think now, from a movement perspective, I have never been physically fitter than what I am now. I know that. Nutrition, I have to say right now, it's probably been the biggest awakening for me, the power of food. You talked about it when we first met. We worked on it. We've done a lot of different foods together. But where I am now with what I eat and how I eat, I think quite honestly is brilliant. And it's something I could never have expected getting to this point, where what I'm eating now and the kind of food I'm eating is something that was alien to me. But now I'm eating it and enjoying it, and it gives me this massive energy to do the movement. And I think from a mindset perspective, I have to say that I feel very resilient and strong mentally. I have a lot more patience now. I think since I've changed some of my attitudes towards my nutrition and my movement, it's made me a lot more compassionate. I get that you said that. I get that too. So I would say now that from a perspective of, am I comfortable, happy and healthy? I'm very comfortable, happy and healthy. I think starting this Better 24/7, because, let's be clear, this is aimed to be a business. So, we're looking to make this our form of income and make this a career. There's some kind of bit nerves around that and excitement, but I know now that my previous experience of business I didn't enjoy. At the end of it, I'd had enough. I'm excited about this now. The mindset I've got is saying this is exciting. We get the chance to do podcasts and share our information, knowledge with people. So mentally, from a thought perspective, mindset, I think it's very, very strong. And it's the one thing that I do know that can be changed relatively quickly. Everything else can take a long time. The movement can take a bit of time. The nutrition can take a bit of time to work through. But mindset, you can almost change overnight. And that's something I want to talk about more in other podcasts and stuff, stuff that actually some of the stuff you're thinking, you can stop thinking instantly. So in pretty good shape. So that's his first podcast. If you've managed to get to the end of it, hopefully you've enjoyed it. And I think, but do you know what I think is important now is it's going to take us time to understand this. I mean, we're recording at the moment in his living room, and there's a big light here. There's a video camera there. Sue's got a video camera in front of her. We've got a laptop, microphones. It's very interesting that we're starting this, because I think the podcast will, and all the information will evolve. So it's interesting, and hopefully you've enjoyed the podcast. You can check us out on our website. It's better247.com if you go to that. There's also social media on there, and we're just starting to populate that. So if you listen to this as close to, the 8th of August, 2019, probably not much on there now, but over the next few weeks it'll come on a bit more. And if you've enjoyed the podcast, consider subscribing. It will eventually go on to all the other platforms. We're using something called Anchor, which sends it to everything else. It'll go to iTunes and podcasts everywhere else. But subscribe. We're going to be putting these on quite regularly. And we're going to mix them up. Sometimes we might talk about movement. Sometimes we might talk about nutrition. Sometimes we might talk about mindset.
And we're going to have other people as well who's going to contribute.
We want people to talk to that have got something that can add value to in what you're doing. And also there will be very shortly a Facebook page. The links will be on the website where you can join and become part of a community. Because if the one thing you've got out of this podcast is this, and this is what you should have got out of it, is firstly, we didn't start in the best place. We've got better in time. Secondly, we talked about the importance of supporting each other. We've supported each other on this journey, so support is important. And that's why I think the Facebook page and the groups will be very, very good for you. So thank you for listening. If you watched it on YouTube, give it a thumbs up. You can also subscribe to the YouTube channel. And thank you, Susan, for putting makeup on today and doing that.
Don't tell everybody I put makeup on.
Are you kidding me? Do you know what? I've just been cutting grass this morning. I've got watercolor in my shoes.
I bet you have you just got your underpants there?
No, I've actually got proper trousers on.
Your gardening shoes.
But I can feel back in my neck because I've got kind of spider's webs in here because I've just put a shirt on so I look nice. So we're going to do another podcast straight after this.
Are we?
Yes, we are. So we're going to have to get changed so it looks like we're doing it on a different day.
Oh, well, now everybody knows.
Now everybody knows.
Oh, look,
the
there's a
cat in the
spider up
bag.
there on the
Probably
line.
come off my hair. So thank you again for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Check us out at bettingseven.com. Subscribe if you like. We'll be back again with some other podcasts very shortly. And until then,
Goodbye.
take care.